Hey guys, RyGuyGaming here today, back with another Roblox scripting tutorial. But today's is a little different than what we're usually used to. I'm not going to be doing one of our run-of-the-mill tutorials, and I'm not going to be showing you how to make something specific. Before you click away from the video though, you're going to want to watch this one because we're going to go over a pretty important concept. Now, we've gone over it before in previous videos, but I wanted to go over it in depth with illustrations to really hammer home what's actually going on here. And today we are talking about filtering enabled. We're going to go over what it is, why it's there, and how to use it properly. And like I said, we're going to have nice little pictures so we can understand what I'm saying and everything. And so hopefully, with this more scripted format, everything is a little bit easier to understand and more clear. Just because filtering enabled is kind of a tough subject for a lot of people. I was on the forums earlier and I saw a lot of people complaining about it and wishing that Roblox would go back to the way it was. And I mean, I can see why they're saying it, but at the same time, filtering enabled makes a lot of sense from a development standpoint. And so I just want to make sure we all know how to use it, and it isn't as frustrating as it apparently is to the people on those forums. So let's get into the tutorial. So the first thing, filtering enabled is basically Roblox's way to ensure security in your place. What it essentially does is it cuts direct communication between the client and the server so that a client can't send false requests and information to the server. And in other words, that basically means that the user can't hack your place from their own computer. And here is an illustration to illustrate this. Here we see the way a typical game is set up without filtering enabled. On the right hand side we have the clients, and this is where like all the GUIs and everything is displayed on the screen, and it handles a couple of like local scripts that get input and stuff like that. On the left though, we have the server. This is what handles all the players, all the physics, all the workspace part, all the movements, all the big stuff that needs to be done that all the clients will be able to see. And so, like I said, with filtering disabled, the client and server can communicate freely back and forth. They can see the contents of each other's different services. And so basically this means you could have like the server handle a GUI, and you can have the client do stuff like change leaderboard values or create parts that all the players will be able to see. And so while that sounds nice because you don't have to worry about whether you need to do something on the client or the server, or whether you need to use a local script or a normal script, this is actually, like we said before, potentially dangerous. People with hacking knowledge or cracked clients can send faulty information to the server. So for example, let's say I have a shop GUI button that sells a sword to a player for like 100 coins or cash or whatever. Well, if I handle all of the value checking on the client, meaning seeing if the player has enough money, hackers can send a false injection attack to your script, making it look like they have enough money even if they really don't. And of course, that's just a small problem. There are a lot bigger problems that you can encounter if you don't monitor the client-server communication. Now, back to the drawing. Once we enable filtering enabled, or I guess enable filtering, it basically cuts those communication lines between the client and the server. And so we need a way to be able to send data back and forth, and this is where the remote events and remote functions can come in. And so the remote event basically acts as a telephone wire between the client and the server, and we talked about this before in a tutorial. You can send data from one to the other, and if we look back on our shop GUI button example, this is how we would use filtering enabled to prevent a hacker from obtaining an item he doesn't have enough money for. As you can see this time, the only thing that we are handling on the client is registering the button was pressed by the player. So you can see on the client there's a little GUI button, and when you click it, that's when it sends data over to the server and says like, hey, the button was clicked, see if he has enough money. And the server will be like, all right, he sees if he has enough money, and then he says, oh, he does. So he gives him the sorter. He says, no, he doesn't. And so we use the remote event as kind of like the mediator, middleman kind of guy to send over that information. The server is safe from the hackers, and it's the clients that are what are vulnerable to them. Now, this is all nice and all, but what happens if you need to send data back? I've got a question like this in the comments before. So this is where the remote functions come in. If you remember back to when we did the filtering text, this is kind of what I'm talking about. If you remember, we got text from the client, we sent it to the server to be filtered, and then the server sent it back to the client, the filtered text. And so if you know anything about other scripting languages, remote functions are basically functions that return a value besides like null, or in Python they're called like none or stuff like that. And so basically, to use our telephone line analogy, you make a call one way and the other way can now receive data as well. And so, to be honest with you, that's basically it. One thing I really like about filtering enabled is that if you remember from our whitelisted door tutorial, is that if you do something on a client, it doesn't necessarily replicate to every other client. So if you remember, we were able to have the door open to one player without having it to be open to all the other ones. If we didn't have filtering enabled, as soon as we made that door usable from the client, then all of a sudden everyone else would be able to pass through it all they wanted. And so I hope this video kind of helped you to understand what filtering enabled is and how it works a little bit better. This video isn't really about how to teach you how to use it. Hopefully you can gather that from just using it, practicing with it, and watching other tutorials on my channel. This is a little shorter of a video because of all the things I had to do, like the pictures and write the script and everything. And so this video did take a little longer to make, so if you guys could do me a little favor and leave a like down below, and also share it with other people so that they can learn how to use filtering enabled too, and make their places, you know, get out of experimental mode so that they can be found in the search results and everything. And so if you're new to the channel though, please don't forget to subscribe, and I hope you all have a really good day, and I will see you later. Goodbye.